8:30. And as the football struggled, hurling people nodded their heads smugly and said yes. Limerick Kilkenny threw up a classic. Jamesy O'Connor and Gizzy Ling on the weekend's action. Text number 53106. We're on Twitter @OffTheBall. Richie McCormack, hello to you.
Hey Joe, just watching a lovely clip of N'Golo Kante reaching the World Cup trophy out to some young kids who are present at the Elysee Palace, giving them a chance to have a paw at it.
Well, they've all received the highest accolade in French life.
The Légion d'honneur.
Yeah. Johnny Ward is in studio, hello.
Hello Joe, how are you?
I'm very well. So, Johnny, the world stopped to watch this high-scoring classic. But enough about Kilkenny Limerick.
I like that.
Let's talk World Cup.
Set the bar high there.
I was going to ask you about the World Cup final, and then just there in the last few moments you told me that you were in Croke Park watching Kerry Galway.
Yeah, I watched the extended highlights last night, and I was just gutted that Pogba pass that preceded his own goal, like possibly the best pass I think I've ever seen, in the audacity of it and the fact that Mbappe got there with yards to spare to show the pace that he had. And maybe the fullback was a little bit, lacking pace, but Pogba's ingenuity. Now, I believe he didn't actually play that well. He was kind of missing for much of the game maybe, but
did all right.
Did okay. The Kante thing was interesting because I think his early yellow card probably really
Apparently he had a stomach bug.
He had a stomach bug.
Yeah, so he stopped short of having a touch at the Gary Linekers, but was taken off for his own well-being, I think.
Something had to explain Kante having the worst game, the first bad game of his life.
He was carrying a yellow, which didn't help his cause. You could kind of see that stifled his play, but the stomach bug explains so much more.
Did the extended highlights give the impression that France had dominated? Because that's not the feeling from watching the game. Croatia were really good.
No, I mean, Croatia had most of the ball, but that befits a team that are chasing the game because they were losing the game most of it. But I think over the course of the tournament, what I've seen of France, they were the most talented and together side. They have defensive frailties, but they were worthy winners of a great tournament.
It was an amazing tournament, great tournament. It's been brilliantly exciting. Everybody, I think, has really enjoyed it. Did France get into fifth gear ever? Did they have to?
The first half against Argentina, maybe.
Maybe. That was also a weird kind of a game.
Yeah, look, you're talking about a very poor Argentina side that France managed to concede 3 goals to, and France never looked that porous up until they were actually clearing games, which is really weird.
Although they were always winning that game kind of as well. They look comfortable a little bit within.
Did the highlights show much of the trophy presentation?
It showed a lot, and I mean,
it went on for about an hour.
I just deep reservations about like these political figureheads. It's just whatever your views on Macron and the Croatian leader. Putin there smiling away like it's hard to warm to that sort of stuff.
Well, he was beaming. I mean, he'd just been having a great time with Conor McGregor, and then he was down on the pitch, I mean, he was high on life.
That's a bizarre thing in and of itself.
Well, yeah, it wasn't great.
I don't know, do the political heads need to be there? I mean there's so much political kudos for that in populist terms. Like
Al Gore was there in '94 presenting the trophy to Dunga, and there've been presidents from different trophies. I'm sure Jacob Zuma was possibly in charge in 2010 in South Africa to present the trophy to Spain. So yeah, like it happens. It's just that most people with a right mind tend not to like Vladimir Putin.
It's the best FaceTime you can get. I mean, Charlie High knew that a long time ago.
Charlie knew the score.
And Macron knew that, I mean, look.
But do you know, just the fact that Macron got so wet,
so cynical.
He was a man of the people. He didn't mind getting wet, and he warmly embraced the Croatian players as well as the French. And I was like, this is political point scoring. It's such a crude, but everyone kind of drunk watching that in France is kind of like just warming to it.
Fair play, Manu. Well done, you.
Even on some horrible subconscious level, he's associated now with this great day in your life. He's in there. He's in your brain.
As far as I know, he's not a sports person. He's definitely not a football person.
He wore a shirt to the game.
JP told me the exact opposite, that he is.
Don't think it's true. Strikes me as being somewhat cold and a bit unknowing towards the whole football thing.
See, it's hard to know. They all pretend to be is the problem. Like Tony Blair was a great football man who didn't actually know who played for Newcastle. Did he support Newcastle?
He did, because Durham was his constituency.
Yeah.
In fairness to Leo, I don't think he, he might put out a tweet saying "well done" such and such. I don't think he lets on that he's mad into like.
No, he doesn't pretend.
He's not Shane Ross territory.
No, when he gets Dave and Rob mixed up.
There is that brilliant picture
of
Leo when he was sports minister swinging a hurl though in one of the parks for a photo shoot, which is still one of the best images of any leader I've ever seen in this country. It's just perfect.
Lads, the games this weekend sealed the debate. Gaelic football, slow, cagey, uber defensive. Hurling is unequivocally a far superior game, says Steve in Limerick. Didn't take long, 3 minutes into the show.
Steve is looking forward to semi-final.
It's the whole, it struck me watching the games in football that the structure of the championship is just wrong. the whole idea of giving more games to more teams would suit if they had, 4 groups of 8, whatever it is, or 8 groups of 4, whatever you want to do it, and give everybody 3 games at the start, and then begin the filtering out process. This reminds me so much of, do you remember that season they had the second group phase in the Champions League?
Yeah.
Where it was just...
Went on and on.
It just kept dragging, and it was mostly pointless.
Yeah, maybe.
It's a big dilemma though at the moment.
I think the biggest problem this weekend was Croke Park as the venue.
And it looked worse than it was, because a lot of people had left who had bought tickets. Like a lot of people had left after the first game yesterday. But
yeah, Monaghan Kildare looked fuller, which is the bizarre thing for
I've been at like...
I had a few mates, Kildare fans, who obviously watched Monaghan Kildare and then promptly went to the bars to watch the World Cup final, which is very understandable. It was quite unfortunate the way they fell.
But I've been at the Galway, all the Galway games bar one this year. So obviously I'm enjoying it because Galway are winning, but the intensity and the passion of the crowd, it's almost like you're sedated watching football. It was so dull yesterday for 80% of that game. Now the game was played in bad conditions. I don't think people appreciate how slippy the ball was, but the atmosphere was not. And it's just because Galway play a game that is so structured but laboured, in that it's all about possession and finding that little gap.
It's methodical.
Methodical. Yeah. And it's actually quite intriguing, but to the kind of, I suppose, slightly untrained eye, it just looks quite slow and boring. And we remember that game where Michael Meehan put on that show against Kerry
years ago, yeah.
And the game has moved on a lot since then. And the game is probably better than it ever was, in terms of, I think, what it takes to win a game is harder than ever. But as a spectacle, it isn't. And hurling is wiping the floor with football at the moment. Hurling is just physicality, I think, like strength and conditioning has brought hurling to an entirely new level, where it's sensationally good. It's brought football to a new level, but it doesn't translate in terms of entertainment, certainly at the moment.
Just a question, lads. What has Monaghan done that makes the national media totally ignore their GAA team? I mean, Mayo are getting more airtime and they're bloody out, says Rob in Monaghan. I think Rob was onto us on Twitter as well over the weekend. Very angry about the lack of airtime Monaghan are not getting.
Well, they got 2 more games to get game time, and that match that they suddenly have...
Alright, that's enough Monaghan talk for one night. Let's leave it there.
You're probably right.
Lads, never mind Macron. What about Croatia's president who stood out in the rain too and was wearing the jersey as well from Maria? She looked very jolly, I thought. Did anyone think she was...
Apparently she's
well oiled, is what you're saying, John.
Well, I don't know. It was just a mess, and then the rain started.
A mess?
Not her. The whole thing was a mess. If you had one umbrella, who would you go to with the umbrella?
You noticed that Putin wasn't getting wet.
That's my point.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly...
To be fair, Putin is the leader of all, you know.
There was that sense that the person with the umbrella, it must have crossed their mind, or maybe he did say to... I mean, it's probably Russian Secret Service, KGB or whatever. The word must have go to Putin. But then he must have checked, should I go?
It's always a dilemma when you have an umbrella, you know.
Will I go to the president of Croatia? Will I go to Macron? Will I go to you? And he just sort of stood there. But it was a very awkward kind of moment.
I used to love going to, GA games down the years where invariably in Connacht, like, it would rain and there'd be no cover behind the goal, and they'd be just so irate, these people, that someone would just open up an umbrella right in front of them. But just on that point that Rob was making about Monaghan, the Super 8s...
No.
Come on.
No, sorry.
The Super 8s...
Monaghan have had their fair dues tonight.
The Super 8s,
we'll come back to Monaghan next week.
The Super 8 moving to the provincial venues will bring it alive.
I agree totally. Sorry, that was my initial point. The biggest problem this weekend was Croke Park.
I want to get a ticket today for Newbridge, so I was like, I better get this, because this will sell out quickly, I think, and Clonus is going to be raucous.
We were talking about this off air with Kieran Shannon and Declan Lynch, who were doing the pay-per-view yesterday, saying that, Kieran was of the opinion that every team wants to have their day out in Croke Park, and this neutral week, essentially, which is what it is, guarantees everybody, no matter which route they come through, will get a day at Croke Park. But the notion of playing at Croke Park and the reality of it are now 2 entirely different things.
Yeah.
And they have to take that into consideration. Playing at Croke Park is brilliant if you're in an All-Ireland semi-final, final. When you're playing one of 3 Super 8 games, doesn't have the same lustre and tends to drag the teams down that are playing it.
It should really be one of the foremost considerations for the GAA when they're deciding now when to play fixtures, because Wexford against Clare in front of about 10,000 at Porky Queeve felt like a bit of a non-event. Whereas if they'd done the double header, as they've so often done with quarter-final, Semple Stadium, 35,000, it's an entirely different event. And so the GAA, when they're planning out these games, actually need to ask themselves, what is the attendance going to be, and let's try and fit it into a corresponding stadium, because 30,000-40,000 at Croke Park, I mean, we've all been there on those days. The game is dead, they always seem to be one-sided, those games. They're never great games.
Well, can they gauge the attendance? Because I saw the attendance for Wexford and Clare the other day at Porky Creeve. I thought it was really poor. It was really, really poor. Like the place, Porky Creeve, looked bloody empty.
It did. Yeah, and in fairness, you were saying I think the official figure was 30,000 odd or whatever for the...
Yesterday.
But I mean...
There was never 30,000 there
together. It didn't feel
together.
anything like that because, you know, even I was...
That's an Arsenal 38,000.
No, I think...
yeah, exactly. Because I was in the premium section for the Saturday game and like there's so many people just watching indoors. So when you're out in the stadium, it's just really dead. Really dead.
I would presume a lot of people left yesterday for the World Cup final.
Absolutely.
You know?
And they didn't feel disappointed if they watched the Sunday game, you know, because it was a bad game of football.
Macron, lads, is a proven football fan, massively into Marseille. There was a documentary on French TV last year where he was candidly filmed checking live scores on his phone, swearing when he heard they conceded, so not just for show from Pedro. Richie, would you like to retract that comment?
No. I want to get to know him better.
On Emmanuel.
Pedro or Macron?
Both.
Okay.
Why not? Both
Pedro seems to know the score.
Macron's got a good handshake, though. I'll give him that.
It was hard not to feel sorry for Croatia as we segue into this news round because, oh man, they just played such beautiful football. Like the technicians on show for Croatia.
Beautiful names as well. You know, just Perisic, Rakitic, Mandzukic, you know, Modric. Just they will live long in the memory.
Yeah.
At summer.
They were just fantastic yesterday. Like some of the football they played. I mean, like to have the Mandzukic on goal and then the penalty in the space of half an hour. I mean,
it's a killer.
It is a killer. Like France are too good to give them that kind of a leg up.
That said, though, if it were true what you said about Kante, they had a chance here because it's like taking a massive player out of your team.
Yeah.
So important to them, like.
Yeah.
But what did you make of Pogba? Because I read in the paper he got 8, and then I was talking to guys then, it's like he was missing.
I thought he was very good. No, like,
decent.
But I mean, they had 63% possession, Croatia. So obviously there's the goal, which is amazing when you include the pass as well. But then what's been very notable with Pogba over the last couple of games is he's tracking runners. He's also shouting at teammates and pointing. Like he catches the eye a bit, Pogba, just that kind of player, even when they don't have the ball. So I remember like watching him kind of closely for a 4 or 5 minute spell last night, and like he's so tuned in.
Why doesn't he do this?
He's serving the team better than he does. Yeah,
in a way that he's not with Manchester United. I mean, maybe
that's coaching though, surely.
Well, I was wondering this. Is this because it's the fact that the scale of a World Cup has put manners on him, and so a World Cup semi-final and a World Cup final and a World Cup quarter-final, he's going to dig in for the team in a way that he just won't for West Brom away. And I don't know. So I don't know. Is it coaching or was it the scale of the event?
Games of higher consequence.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
the scale of the event, but. Maybe it's Deschamps. Maybe Deschamps could get him to do it properly against West Brom away. And then, so the other theory is maybe the penny has suddenly dropped here. He's 25 and now he's going to take this into his Old Trafford form. I'd be sceptical, actually. I think there is an issue with Pogba and Mourinho. Seriously.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wager on being there come the start of the season, if I'm being quite honest.
The news round is brought to you this evening with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. So we've zigzagged there around about 6 different things that happened over the weekend.
We've what?
Zing-zonged.
Wow.
You're starting with Bray.
Yeah, the PFAI confirming this evening that Bray Wanderers have failed to meet the deadline to pay their players. Last week, the Seagull squad voted for strike action, having gone 7 weeks. It's now almost 8 without wages being paid. FAI Director of Competitions, Frank Gavin, says that there will be sanctions imposed upon the club if the players don't receive the money they are due. Meanwhile, the players at Limerick FC are set to vote on strike action of their own tomorrow. Their issue also centres around unpaid wages. Frank Gavin told us at the weekend that these issues are untenable.
It's very important that each club knows that within the league, that actions that they do, or situations that they do, or false promises that they do to whether it's players or anybody else, that can have an extremely negative effect on people who are really doing a very, very good job over the last few years.
Elsewhere.
You know your League of Ireland. What's the read on this?
This week, Cork City are going to play in Warsaw tomorrow, and Dundalk are hopefully going to go through, and then you've Derry City and Minsk, and you've Shamrock Rovers going over to Sweden, and it's the best week of the year to be a League of Ireland fan, because you get to see them pit their kind of form against better teams and all that, and I always enjoy watching them perform at a good technical level, and it's dominated by this nonsense. Like, beyond how morally repugnant the Bray board have been in all of this, where clearly they knew there was a chance that they were going to run out of money. Bray don't get crowds, so where were they going to get money? to pay the players. And if the FAI's licensing process, which they're kind of, and Fran has divorced himself a bit from the licensing process, even though clearly they can't, because they got the licensing process there, and the licensing process is supposed to be rigorous. How did they convince them that they were able to pay their players throughout the season when there was a big red flag last year and there's nobody going to their games? So there's no real income coming into Bray. That's the simple thing. So how did they convince them? And how is it come to a situation where people's livelihoods have just been thrown out the park?
As in they've tempted players from other clubs?
Of course. Galway United looked to sign a player this year. I remember this. And I remember that Shane Keegan sent me, he's decided to go to Bray instead, Sean Heaney. Sean Heaney is a young defender who is from Dublin, so he wants to play Premier Division football in Bray rather than come to Galway United on less money. That's fair enough. But that was based on a false promise. And
there were players tweeting a bit in and of a month ago saying, when Bray said that players will be allowed to find clubs of their own after the wages issue was coming to the fore, they were told that they were allowed to find clubs. And a couple of players, I think they've since retracted them under advice from PFAI, said, it would have been nice to know this a month ago when we were being offered the sun, moon and stars to sign for you.
What is the motivation of the Bray board in this whole thing? That nobody wants them. Nobody seems to want this board to be in place in Bray. Nobody goes to games. They've totally, removed the goodwill of the local people. There's nobody at the game. There was 270 or something at their last game. What is their motivation, and why are they unavailable for comment tonight? And they are.
It's not even that they're unavailable for comment. They're unavailable to speak to PFAI about why these wages now haven't been paid. So they're not offering an explanation to the players as to why they're not being paid.
And so what's the timeline here? How does this play out over the next few days?
Well, now we don't know, because there was a 5 p.m. deadline today as regards when the wages should have been paid by. Beyond that, it's now up to the jurisdiction of the FAI and Frank Gavin, etc. to decide.
What did they do in terms of a sanction? Right, this is like sanctions in dictatorships, where basically they give these sanctions, but it doesn't matter because the people can't do anything, and the people just get poorer and poorer and poorer because of sanctions, even though the government themselves don't really suffer. So what are they going to do? Fine them, not dock them points because they're going to get relegated anyway? What are they going to do?
Where does revoking the licence come into play?
Well, how did they get a licence? They should be thrown out of the league straight away. And Galway United went down last season despite running everything prudently, and there was all this kind of talk maybe Limerick mightn't be in great shape. This is in the off-season now. Bray aren't in great shape, and here we are halfway through the season, and it turns out they're not in great shape, and the two of them are going to get relegated, and their players have been treated like dirt, really. And
there was no sense over the summer that somehow they'd wangled some investment somewhere.
Not that I know of, anyway.
No, there's none that I'd heard, no.
But this is Ponzi scheme stuff. There's no money coming in. So how do you pay players good wages on giving them 2-year deals?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it definitely hasn't been answered at the moment.
But it's annoying. It's annoying to the likes of the hardcore League of Ireland fans who really, really are trying. We've for years been, as my mate would say, we've been hovering on the fringes of mainstream society because people look down on the League of Ireland. And now, since Dundalk in 2016, where the League of Ireland has become a bit cool.
Yeah.
But you just keep getting dragged down with this rubbish.
Okay, fair point. So the tee times have been released for the Open, Rich?
Yeah, defending champion Jordan Spieth will be partnered by Justin Rose and Kirdesh Afi Banrat for the opening 2 rounds of this week's Open Championship. Rory McIlroy's tilt at a second ever Open will see him begin in the company of Mark Leishman and Thor Bjorn Olesen. McIlroy's group will go out at 12:53 on Thursday. Padraig Harrington, the last man to win at Carnoustie, and he'll play with Bubba Watson and Matt Wallace from just before 10-3 on Thursday. Paul Dunne and Shane Lowry will both be out before 8 a.m. Lowry is grouped with Terrell Hatton and Patrick Cantlay, while Dunne will play alongside Ross Fisher and Austin Cook. Tiger Woods, he's been grouped with Irish Open champion Russell Knox and Hideki Matsuyama. And just after 1 o'clock on Thursday, the world number 1, Dustin Johnson, will take to the first tee along with Alex Noren and Charlie Hoffman. Just 3 more games remain in this year's All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship. It follows Limerick's first championship win over Kilkenny since 1973, which came yesterday at Semple Stadium. John Kiley's side to face Cork in this year's semi-finals, following that 27 points to 122 win over the Cats. The Limerick manager says they need to go and prove themselves once again against the best in their province.
I'm sure who we're going to be playing. We're going to be playing Munster champions Cork, who've been exemplary all year, and who have, put Clare to the sword. They drew with us on their third game in the round robin series when most would have said they'd have fallen away, but they didn't. You know, so they nearly got the defining score that day. You know, and that would have meant that we didn't qualify out of Munster at all. Only for Sean Finn getting a bare block on the ball. So it's been defining moments. There have been lots of moments, but they're not defining moments for the team. The team is defined by itself, by its own attributes, its own characteristics.
We'll talk about the hurling with Jamesy O'Connor and Gizzy Ling just after 8 o'clock. In competition news for you, all this week we've teamed up with McKeever Sports to give you a chance to win £2,000 worth of Adidas gear for your sports team. So McKeever Sports are the largest Adidas teamwear provider in Ireland and the UK. They can quickly produce personalised gear with your club colours, crests and team names. To be in the chance of winning, just identify tonight's mystery voice who ate his first ever dime bar at the weekend and gave this exclusive review to Off the Ball.
It's very thick and hard.
Text your name and answer. And the team you want to win the prize. So text your name and answer. And the team you want to win the prize.
I was never a big dime bar man myself.
Is that right? To 53106 for 30 cents.
Did you ever have the dime cake from IKEA? Ooh. It's a good man. Ooh. Yeah.
I should say it's all with thanks to McKeever Sports, the largest Adidas teamwear provider in Ireland and the UK. So
I think you can get it outside of IKEA as well. Good. We move on to the football.
Yes, please.
Go on. Galway's fine start to the Super 8's tempered somewhat by Paul Conroy's injury. The midfielder suffered a double leg break in the first half of yesterday's 113-110 win over Kerry at Croke Park. Conroy's collision with Sean O'Shea has ended his season prematurely, while yesterday's defeat leaves Kerry in dire need of a win over Monaghan in Clonus next week. Monaghan's campaign got underway with that 15 points to 110 victory over Kildare. And President Higgins congratulated Ireland's varied medal winners from across the weekend. Summer Leckie was the last of those. She won high jump silver at the World Under-20 Athletics Championships in Tampere in Finland. It followed on from the silver medal run of the Irish women's 4x100 metres team on Saturday. President Higgins also celebrated Ireland's rowers who left the World Cup event in Lucerne with medals of their own. Sunita Puspur won silver in the women's single sculls, while Paul and Gary O'Donovan were gold medalists in the lightweight men's double sculls A final. And Antonio Conte has taken the high ground with a departing message to Chelsea fans. The Italian was sacked last week after 2 seasons in charge, with the club openly working to install Maurizio Sarri in the Stamford Bridge hot seat before Conte was even sacked. Conte describes in a statement via the LMA the Chelsea fans as amazing and has wished the club every success going forward in the future. And Anthony Joshua will defend his heavyweight titles against Alexander Povetkin at Wembley Stadium on the 22nd of September. He'll put his IBF, WBO and WBA belts on the line against the Russian, who'll be 39 by the time of the fight. The WBA has ordered Joshua to take on Povetkin in a mandatory defence, delaying even a contest with Deontay Wilder to unify the division. There's been no word yet on the undercard, but given recent history, Katie Taylor, of course, likely to feature on that.
Yeah. Someone sent in a tweet defending the president of Croatia. Makes the point she attended every Croatia match at the World Cup, travelled in economy class, sat with the fans in the stadium, refused to take any pay for her days not at work. Now that's leadership. Or it is a cynical attempt, which was then, completely leaked to the media. This is what she has done.
Absolutely.
Like, come on.
It's certainly not leadership.
You want her to proper hockey it up.
Now that's leadership. Come on.
That's populism.
Of course, it's not widely known that a lot of my family are Croatian.
Yeah.
Charlie, what a man. How we could do with him now?
Well, listen, on that note.
He built this city on rock and roll, Johnny.
Although I saw Gary Neville having a good pop at Boris Johnson on the ITV coverage. Did you see that as well?
I did not.
It's like everybody was ticking up for Putin over the weekend. So you've McGregor doing his thing. Again, I'd love Conor McGregor to come on and talk at length about what he knows and admires about Putin.
You be the man to interview him, Joe.
But then Gary Neville was saying, look, I know, Russia's not perfect. Putin has his issues. But look, we've got some muppets like Boris Johnson in our country. I mean, I wouldn't equate Boris Johnson with Putin.
No.
Gareth Southgate had a pop at him before the tournament as well.
Putin?
As Boris Johnson. I was actually on a newspaper review with you and the great David McWilliams.
Stop trying to garner sympathy for Boris Johnson.
That was one of the great days at work, wasn't it?
It really was.
Williams in here talking about Russia was mind-blowing.
I've never felt as much out of my depth.
I know.
I'm still getting over it, actually.
Yeah. No, it was a humbling experience.
You still texting each other?
Did you ever take you up on your offer to go to a League of Ireland?
I've been waiting for the right moment.
Okay.
So I haven't. If he's listening in, which I'm sure he is,
Call me.
Haven't gotten over the Dalkey Book Festival he plugged many times.
Yeah.
I'll be in touch, David.
Look, if you need a third person to go along that night, you have my number.
I've plenty of alternatives. It's like I'm going to Daily Mound with David McWilliams to drink some craft beer and watch Bows.
That's a good night. That is a very good night.
That's living the dream.
That is living the dream.
Even without McWilliams, Joe, that's the dream.
Well, So, that's our news round
It's a League
done.
of Ireland dream.
Thanks to Johnny for coming.
Mine, damn it.
Thanks to Richie. We're taking a short break. Mark Lawrenson, no less, is going to give us his take on the World Cup final, on France and tournament generally. That's on the way.
Off the Ball on News Talk.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products.
Moncrief.
Human testicles have receptors that can taste sweet, salty, bitter, sour and umami flavours.
Moncrief's Fact of the Day. Bet you didn't know that now, did you?